Hello and welcome to the Never Open Podcast, the podcast open to everyone except poor Yoshihashi. Will that guy ever get some gold? Well, never say never. I'm Luke. I'm one of your hosts of the Never Open Podcast, and oh my god, I'm so excited because today we're covering the Together Project special plus the first two nights of the New Japan Cup, and with me is Andrew. Say hello, Andrew.
That's right. I'm Andrew. I'm Andy. I'm Drucifer, whatever you want to call me. And I'm excited to talk about New Japan 2. I know me and Luke have been friends for quite a while now, and part of that has just been, watching wrestling together. Even though, Luke, where are you at right now?
I'm 2 hours away from Melbourne, Australia. So a little bit in the country, sort of. Used to be a city boy, but now out in the country. And yeah, there you go. So we've never met before in person. So it's just it was a tweet thing and a Facebook messages thing, and now it's a Skype thing. So here we are.
That's right, because I'm all the way in Ohio in the United States, and we're two guys who just love pro wrestling, and we in particular love New Japan. So Luke, what is this podcast going to be about? Like, how's this going to work, and why are we doing this?
Well, we're doing this because we love New Japan Pro Wrestling. We want to spread the love of New Japan Wrestling all over people.
Jesus.
That came out wrong. But we do. We like to tweet, not just to each other, but to everyone, really. We like to tweet, retweet, have a good old chat, have a good old laugh. And then watch people chop each other till they turn red.
That's right. That's a pretty good rundown of what this is going to be about. We're going to be covering, New Japan, and it may not be a weekly show. At this point, it will be because we're going to have we're covering the New Japan Cup, and we're going to talk about how that's going to work with the dates and everything. But New Japan takes breaks sometimes, so this podcast will be up in a timely fashion when there's New Japan Pro Wrestling to cover. And Luke, I don't know about you, but I am so fucking happy that New Japan's back. It's one of my favorite things ever, and I'll tell you why. One of the reasons why I love New Japan so much is that, and this is a weird way to say it, but it's because I love live pro wrestling. If you know me from other podcasts I'm on and stuff like that, you'll know that I go to tons of live pro wrestling events, and that's not going to happen anymore because of this stupid COVID thing. And so, I thought to myself, what is the only really wrestling that when I watch it on television gives me that same feeling of being there live, even though I'm not? And that's New Japan in spades. And that's what it is. So to me, this is one of the only things I can watch on television and feel like I'm there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's definitely got an atmosphere to it. They have such wonderful storytelling with how they build up their matches and things that I'm often sitting on the edge of my seat or, doing the whole holy shit kind of thing. And it is quite like being at a live show. I haven't felt that with American wrestling often. There'll be matches here and there and stories here and there where I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm invested. I want to know what happens and stuff. I'm not shitting on American wrestling. It's good. I like it. But New Japan just has this atmosphere that you kind of can't help but get caught up in, especially when it's important matches. When they do big matches, it feels big almost every time, and it's hard not to get caught up in that.
Yeah, and our goal here is going to be to communicate that love to you, the listener. And what we want to do is we want you to love New Japan as much as we do. And so, there's a lot of podcasts out there that talk about wrestling. And I'll tell you what, I'm not trying to shit on them, but most of them will have opinions with no reason for them. I feel this way. I like this. I don't like that. Well, guess what? We're going to have well thought out opinions that will make you think and go, hey, Now I understand why this is good. Now I understand why that is bad. And I always say on other shows, the Road Home from Wrestling podcast that I'm on frequently as well, we always say we're educational first. And I think that's going to be a big part of our goal and our duty here on the Never Open podcast is to educate folks about New Japan and hopefully get educated ourselves in some ways.
There's always things you can do to educate yourself about New Japan too, which is something I quite like. For example, anyone who watches New Japan and they're like, oh, it's Japanese or commentary only tonight. That's okay. Usually in the next few days, Kevin Kelly will have English commentary on. So sometimes it's delayed. It's delayed now because of Corona. Otherwise, it would also be live English commentary. Another example would be Chris Charlton, who is a New Japan kind of historian and commentator and translator. And if he's not on commentary, he's really good to follow on Twitter because he will translate for you some of the promos, key things that Japanese commentators say, and also backstage comments and things too. So there are ways to kind of educate yourself to get invested more and to learn more about New Japan, which is really awesome.
Yeah, speaking of which, Luke, I want to educate you on something. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. Did you know that the Never Championship is an acronym?
No, I did not.
Yes, so, the Never Championship was originally, the idea of it was to be a belt for folks who aren't in the New Japan promotion, like visitors, basically, or people that are newcomers, and so it was kind of a division among that. That did not last long, but the Never acronym stands for New Blood, Evolution, Valiantly, Eternal, and Radical. And so one of the fun things about the Japanese language is it does not translate well to English. However, nope. New Japan is very English friendly. In fact, even when there's not English commentary, a lot of times the ring announcer, for example, will count in English, along with the ref when there is a count out or something like that. So they're very English friendly when it comes to that. So don't be scared off by that. But I think it's fun when you translate things or they don't ever quite sound right. And that's always a good time. So I can't wait to, pick out those little things because I don't know what the hell New Blood, Evolution, Valiantly, Eternal, Radical is supposed to mean. But Luke, what does that belt mean now? Like, what does that mean to you? What is the Never Open Championship to you?
Well, the Never Open weight title will kind of influence my little intro at the start there. The Never Open weight title is open to everyone. It's not a weight class title, so you can have juniors versus heavyweights quite often. You can have people, who are big, small, fast, strong. Doesn't matter. You can compete for the Never title, which I think is pretty cool.
It's definitely awesome, and that's another thing, one of the things we're going to break down is we're going to break down the faction system that's going on in New Japan, the weight class system that they have, and how all that plays parts and everything, and that's all going to be stuff that you learn from us just kind of along the way, as we cover all this stuff. Yep. But Luke, let's tell the folks what our history is with New Japan. I'll start. The first time I ever saw a New Japan match in full, I had seen some GIFs or whatever here and there, was in 2015. I saw somebody said, hey, you need to watch Koto Bushi versus Shinsuke Nakamura from Wrestle Kingdom 9 for the Intercontinental title. And I watched it. And I watched it again. And I watched it again. And I still to this day will put that on. I can say whatever I want about that match and say, oh, it was great and everything. It really doesn't matter what I say. But if you quote something that Shinsuke Nakamura said about that match, he said it was the first time he'd ever been in a match and feared for his own life. So I fucking love that. Right. And so, to me, that was my hook. And then I started to see some other strong style type matches, and I thought to myself, these guys aren't fucking around. And that's what I really liked. And so, I just started watching it, and not too far after that, they came out with New Japan World, which is their streaming service. And I've been a subscriber ever since. Luke, how did you get into New Japan Pro Wrestling, and why did you like it when you first saw it?
Well, it was a couple of years later for me. I'd heard some buzz here and there about it, but I was just like, I don't know, man. It's all Japanese and all that kind of stuff. Pretty much what probably puts a lot of people off now is how I felt right before I just jumped right the hell in. But I remember in 2017, my wife and I sitting down and we're like, let's try this New Japan thing out. Let's just watch this one match. And we watched, I can't remember which one because there's a few, but we watched one of the Okada versus Kenny Omega matches. It ended in a draw, so that might tell you which one it was. And even though it ended in a draw and went for 1 hour, we were absolutely riveted. And then not long after we watched that match, it was the kind of the first American live show that they had right before the G1 that year. I jumped in with that, kind of liked what I saw, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is interesting. And then had no idea what I was in for when, like the next week, it's the fucking G1. And the G1 not only helped me get to know most of the wrestlers, it also, I fell in love. Just the tournament matches, the quality of the matches, the excitement level. And these are people I didn't know yet, and I wanted to know everyone. I wanted to see everyone wrestle everyone. I'm still like that, especially today. Like, I want to see new combinations, and even combinations I've seen before I want to see again. New Japan is really good at that, giving you matches you didn't know you wanted, or giving you a match again, but you're fucking amped up and excited for it. So after that G1, I was gutted because there wasn't another show until September, and I was just, and then, because it finished in August that year, and they need a couple of weeks off. They just work their asses off, and
yes,
that's always, you're addicted to New Japan when they finish a tour, and you're just scratching your arms, going, "Come on, man, put another show on." So that's what's been tough about the whole COVID time. 110 days without New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's been devastating.
Well, Luke, we're going to talk here in a second about this New Japan Together special that was on the 15th. But how do you feel like? And we're not here to bury other companies, but how do you feel that New Japan Pro Wrestling has handled the COVID-19 situation in the world?
Well, apart from no shows, which I understand that, and yes, it is devastating, but what they did is they closed it all down. For 110 days, there was 0 shows. They did things like Together Project shows where they have interviews and things like that. That's great, but there was no wrestling, absolutely 0, which allowed all the wrestlers to get fit, or at least, okay, they're already fit. I mean, rested, because some of them are quite beat up, and it always feels to me like they look after their talent. They didn't fire anyone, which is another, I don't know. I know that sounds mind-blowing, but they didn't. Not just the Japanese wrestlers, but also overseas wrestlers and everything like that too. They kept everyone, and now that they're coming back, they're doing it very slowly. So they're not in a rush to go, all right, crowd, come on, join us. They've got this plan that they're setting out over the course of months, how they'll roll that out. But how they've handled the COVID situation, I'm impressed. It's, as I said, it's really hard to go 110 days without New Japan. And if it's hard for me, a fan, it must have been even harder for everyone working in the company.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's been like for them. And I know a few people that are pro wrestlers, and they've had altered states, let's just say, dealing with all this. And, it's affected a lot of people as far as that, taking that thing away from them that they love. However, like you said, New Japan, they didn't fire anybody. In fact, I believe the people, their CEOs and all those kinds of people at the top, they took pay cuts so that everyone else would still get paid. Another thing is that they've really, I'm really impressed with how they've handled this on screen. Luke, are you ready to get into this first Together special from the 15th? And we can kind of sprinkle in a little bit as we talk about this, some of the things that were different from a normal show and how they kind of handled this thing.
All right. So I know you were not quite awake, but on the 15th, no, you weren't. It's all good. I said there's a pre-show on. Anything of major importance happens, I'll let you know. Well, most of it was in Japanese, so I couldn't really tell you most of what happened. But most of it was promo saying, I'm the best, I'm going to win. No, I'm the best, I'm going to win. Standard kind of promo stuff. You get that impression. But everyone looked so happy arriving to the arena. We didn't see too much. We didn't see full-on testing. But we did see a couple wrestlers like Tanahashi and Koto Bushi get temperature checks. But everything seems a bit more, and I mean this in a good way, sterile and disinfected, I guess. They've taken a lot of precautions and stuff for this. And another thing I mentioned, which I thought was absolutely adorable, was they had 3 commentators on the first night. Milano Collection was one of them. I can't remember the other guy's name. I'm sorry. And also Jushin Liger. And Jushin Liger had a screen in between 2 of the commentators with his face on it because he's sitting further away from them, social distancing. So you got him on a TV screen interacting with them that way. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And
they did that so they could still get the full frame shot with all 3 announcers in it, so that's why they had this monitor. And it's really funny because when you first see the shot, you just see the monitor and you're like, where it was he via satellite, and then you see the side shot, and no, he's just 10 feet away. It's really funny, but at the same time it's a very smart workaround for this COVID thing. And I just, like I said, I don't want to shit on other companies though, but the ingenuity and the care for the fans and the pro wrestlers is very high in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that was something that was made very clear to me from this show.
Yep. Now, before we get stuck into night one, here's another reason to love New Japan. I think everyone, even if you don't like sports, you generally have a team. I'm not huge on Australian rules football, but if you ask me who my team is, I'm like, oh, it's the Essendon Bombers. That means nothing to you, Andrew. That's fine. But I think you get the general gist. But the really cool thing about New Japan Pro Wrestling is there are factions, or you can call them teams. It doesn't matter. There's a group of evil people called Suzuki Gun, led by Menara Suzuki. There's, of course, Bullet Club, which everyone's heard about. You've got Los Ingobernables de Japón, which is kind of the cool, edgy group is how you describe them. You've got Chaos, which is exactly that, because it's a huge group with a mix of all sorts of different kind of wrestlers in it. And I just love that kind of thing. Everyone's got their own team. I guess people might switch back and forth, but I love so many wrestlers and so many different teams. I'm kind of all over the place like that, but it's something you can get behind. If you've got a team, you want to support them, you want to kind of cheer them on and stuff. So I think that's a huge reason for me as well, because you've always got them fighting. There's always a reason for them to fight, and that reason might be your team sucks and my team's better than your team. I'm gonna punch you out. That's it. That's all you need.
Well, even the guys that aren't affiliated with the team, there's a few. They will make their own for brief periods of time. Like Taguchi Japan is now a team, and that's kind of Taguchi's guys, and so his guys will be sometimes they're there, sometimes they're different people, and then there's kind of the group that doesn't have a name, and that would be the young lions and the old lions, basically. The dads as they call, which is some of the older wrestlers that kind of mentor the young lions. Now I would assume, maybe we should talk about the young lions here, because I think one of the first matches that we see here on the show is a young lions match, right?
Yep. You've come home. Excuse me. When you're sitting there, you put New Japan on. They've been gone for 110 days. What are they going to do? Are they going to put on a big match first to go, all right, we're back, let's go? Or are they going to ease you in and make you feel like you've come home? And I think that's how it felt like to me, because the young lion music hits, Gabriel Kidd comes out, and so does Yota Tsuji, and I'm like, all right, we're starting pretty much like we've never left with a young lion match. So the young lions are New Japan's trainees, pretty much. They're learning the ropes, well, literally, I guess. And it's always good to put your upcoming talent on TV and wrestling, because they'll get a chance to wrestle big names, usually in tag matches, and they'll just soak up so much experience. By the time they leave to go on excursion and come back, they already have all that chemistry with a lot of the wrestlers that they left behind. So I really love the young lion system. Plus, I always like seeing Suzuki beat them up. That's just me.
It's true. And we're going to brush over some of this stuff, because if we tell you everything we know about New Japan in this first episode, we're going to have as much to say. So it'll be 17 hours long, and we won't have anything to say on episode 2. So we'll get into the Young Lion system a little more in detail in the future. But Gabriel Kidd, he's a British wrestler, that a couple folks I know are familiar with, and then the other guy, Tsuji. So the deal with Young Lions is that they all seem like they have potential, right? I mean, like, that's the deal. You see them, and you see them get better. They can't do very many moves. They're literally not allowed to, and they're only allowed to wear trunks and boots, and that's it. And so they're very bland. But the ones that stand out among the blandness, among those limitations, are the ones that you really start to like. That's I really liked Show and Yo when they were Young Lions, and there's been a couple more, that I've seen kind of come up, notably Jay White and David Finlay. Those are two guys that I just stuck out like a sore thumb among all the other Young Lions, and now Jay White's one of their top guys. So, you get to see the ultimate fan experience, which I've always said the ultimate fan experience for a wrestling fan is to see a wrestler advance, whether that's getting better, whether that's learning, or whether that's moving to the next level. And so that's what you get to see right in front of your face.
And you'll learn. Sorry, I'll just say, just to add on to that, what you'll learn as you watch New Japan Pro Wrestling is that a lot of their big stars, like Kazuchika Okada, Hiroshi Tanahashi, etc., Tatsuya Naito, they started in the Young Lion program. So this is the tried and true formula that has legit created, some of the most dynamic, wonderful, engaging kind of wrestlers in the world.
It also leads to things like this. On the biggest show of the year, you're not bringing in some old guy that used to wrestle for you. It's like, when you see the Wrestle Kingdom card, they may bring in one person from the outside, usually Chris Jericho these days. He used to wrestle for New Japan, but other than that, most of those guys that you see in the main events and everything came through the Young Lion system, or a system similar to it in All Japan or Pro Wrestling Noah. So, it is a tried and true format, and it shows you right in front of your eyes, they are building stars always. And that's why the opening match is almost always a singles match between two young lions. What other matches did we have on this card, Luke?
All right, so we did have Yota Tsuji. He did beat Gabriel Kidd with the standard young lion submission hold, the good old Boston Crab. And then the second match we had Yuya Uemura and Tomohiro Ishii versus two people from Suzuki Gun. That's El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru.
Damn, and that's good, man. You are crushing this. I'm gonna screw some of these names up pretty bad, but man, you're nailing them.
I think it's a lot of New Japan. You kind of learn a lot of the pronunciations. So, all right, when you got a tag match like this and there's a young lion in it, all right, you can probably go, oh, it's the young lion who's probably going to get pinned, and you're right. But these matches are still fun as well because you get to see someone like Uemura who's coming along quite nicely, I'd say, as a young lion. And you get to see him interact with two veterans like El Desperado and Kanemaru who, admittedly are going to kick the shit out of him because they're in Suzuki Gun. And you also get to tag with Tomohiro Ishii, so all you can do is learn. But, of course, Uemura did get his ass kicked, and he did get pinned by El Desperado, I think it was.
Yeah. He lost to the Numero Dos was the name of the move. And, another thing to point out, I've heard many times from American fans, I don't like those goddamn multi-man matches on all them shows. I'll fast forward to them singles matches. That's exactly how they sound.
Dude, I was hoping you'd bring this up because I wrote this down. I love the tag format. I know there are fans who don't like it, but there's several reasons why I do. They can set up feuds and title matches. They preview upcoming matches that you're going to get. And my favorite reason for enjoying these tag matches is everyone gets to wrestle everyone. So when you get two wrestlers who maybe haven't had a singles match before having a singles match, well, they've already wrestled each other 100 times in tag matches. So by the time they kind of have to do the big match together, they've already got that chemistry there. They already know how to kind of respond to each other's moves and things. So I think with that tag team preview system, you really get them kind of keeping their chemistry up with each other. So I think they're important. Now, are they easy to skip? They can be, but if you invest your time in them, you learn the wrestlers a lot better. And there are surprises. Every now and again, I've seen this happen. Like people on Twitter going, "Holy shit, what happened?" And I'm like, "Well, you skip the tag team preview matches." And
that's not what they sound like. What do they sound like? You can do it. You got it right.
I'm not. You want me to do it? You want me to do an American accent, don't you?
Yes.
I could do a kind of. No, I can't do an American accent. No, because it's gonna sound like Butthead or something, man. Like from Beavis and Butthead. I can't do it. I might come out with one later, but I've seen it. Like people going like, I skipped that. So what's going on here? Well, what you missed is such and such attack, such and such as said, like, I'm coming for your title. So the tag team matches, they're more important than most people think they are.
And just to your point, it also kind of shows how much of a genius through booking Gato and the people in charge over there are. And that is because the tag matches are booked based on who the people are facing. So, for example, in that tag match, we have Ishii and Uemura versus Kanemaru and El Desperado. Well, those guys were across the ring from each other in the New Japan Cup and singles matches that we'll talk about later. So like you said, they get to build their rapport and they get to start the story that they're going to finish maybe in the singles match. So it's awesome. What was the next match, Luke?
All right, so our third match is an 8-man tag. So we've got Tomoaki Honma, Yoshihashi, Toru Yano, and Hiroki Goto. Sort of chaos. I know Honma isn't really in chaos, but he's been roped in, I guess, like Tanahashi and all that kind of stuff when they made their truce way back. But across from them is maybe, and I mean no disrespect to the wrestlers involved, maybe the crappiest lineup of Bullet Club ever. And I mean no disrespect to the 4 men because I quite like them. We've got the Master Heater Jado. We've got the man we all trust, Gato. We've got Taiji Ishimori, the Bone Soldier. And we've got Pimp Juice, which is Yujiro Takahashi. So that's another preview match because we've got...
We'll get to all those singles matchups later.
All right. We don't need to go, this guy's going to fight this guy, this guy's going to fight this guy. But it's always an interesting match, though. Yoshihashi is a guy who's never won a title, and I always want him to do well, but... No,
we don't, right?
You don't?
No, wait, I don't. Well, see, that's the thing, is me and Luke aren't going to agree on everything, and that's okay. And I vehemently hate Yoshihashi. I want to take that stick and shove it up his ass. That's what I think.
Who do you hate more, though, Yoshihashi or Hiroki Goto?
Goto, definitely. Right. I want to take Yoshihashi's stick, shove it up his ass, and then shove Yoshihashi up Goto's ass. That's right. What I'd like to do. So there you go.
But come on, Goto's had several titles. Don't you want to see at least one title run by Yoshihashi? It doesn't have to be the heavyweight title. It can be not even the 6-man never titles. Come on, dude.
No, I don't. I hope it never happens. If it does, then you guys are definitely want to listen to that episode because Angry Andy is a good time. So,
the funny thing about that match is, as I said, Kento is stuck in America. Switchblade, Jay White's stuck over there as well. So are the Gorillas of Destiny. So you're left with the Japanese only members of Bullet Club. And it could be considered apart from maybe Ishimori, they're more jobbery members of Bullet Club, but they actually beat the team of Goto, Yano, Yoshihashi, and Honma. Yujiro Takahashi hits the Pimp Juice on Honma for the win.
We're going to get opportunities a little later to talk more about these wrestlers individually. I have a lot to say about some of these people, which I'm going to save some of it for other episodes. But I love these multi-man matches. We got a couple more, and that's basically this whole Together project was a mystery card. And we should have known what all the matchups were going to be because they were just, we just didn't know what they were going to do. We didn't know if they were going to throw, Hiromu Takahashi versus Naito on there or something like that. That's what I was hoping for. But
because we were supposed to get that match
right
at the King of Sports. Well, the New Japan Pro Wrestling anniversary show always has the Super Junior champion, which is in this case is Hiromu Takahashi, versus the heavyweight champion, which is Naito. It's a match that I don't think has happened before, one-on-one.
No.
So
never.
I think every man and his dog was super pumped for that and then super upset when, it didn't happen because of obvious reasons.
It's okay. What's going to happen is that story will play out over the next 2 years, and eventually that match will happen. Yeah. And it'll be fantastic. I can't wait. So we got a couple more matches to run through here, but I do want to mention that they stopped. Now they used to have an intermission on every show. And then when they started to pick up more American audience, they kind of changed their format about a year, maybe 2 years ago, where they stopped having intermissions and just the whole show would happen. And but now they've got intermissions. And what's awesome, first of all, there's no one in the crowd, obviously. We don't even know where they're at. In fact, on the card, it says location unknown. So we don't even know where they're, this gymnasium or whatever it is that they're at. But everything's blacked out except for the area around the ring and where the announcers are. And you can see there's one young lion with a mask on ringside to take care of stuff, grab people's gear or whatever he needs to do. And then in the middle of the show, they just stop, and these people in hazmat suits come out and just clean the whole fucking ring, clean everything around the ring, stand there for a minute, make sure the ropes are good, clean it again. And I just love that. It's not the fact that it's just the optics of it, that they're being, PC and they're trying to look like they're doing it. They're actually cleaning stuff, and it's they're doing it right in front of your face. Another thing I love about New Japan is they're very transparent. When something goes on, when they have an announcement to make, they just do it. They don't hide behind it. They don't go, oh no, and deny it. They just fucking do it. And so, an injury happens, they just tell you. They don't act like it's some big, kayfabe thing. They need to, work all the marks. And I think a big part of that is that, most of Japan are smart fans. There's more smart fans in Japan than there are in America. But the thing is that the Japanese fans are more like, a fan like you or I, where we want to buy in. We want to believe. And so because we want to believe it's real, we're along for the ride. And so they are too. So I just went over a million things, but the point of what I was trying to say is that I'm so happy they're doing that. I want to stop to see them do this. So, it didn't kill the momentum of the show. It just made me happy.
I also want to point out in that break, and there are intermission breaks over all 3 nights where they do the disinfecting thing, and in each of those, and it's the same one each time, they play a video package. So someone's coming. It's either someone from outside New Japan coming in, or it's maybe a young lion coming back. But they show this promo, and it's all these trees and shit, and someone running through them, and there's this English voiceover saying that this guy is on his way to being the Grandmaster or something like that. And they don't show you his face, but New Japan usually do these quite well. I remember the Switchblade packages before he debuted. I remember the Jericho ones before he debuted, or re-debuted, I guess. The Show and Yo ones as well. So they are building or getting ready to introduce someone new, and that's really exciting.
And you have no fucking idea who it is.
No.
One of the ones that the most recent one that they did was Jon Moxley, and people swore it was Sami Callihan. There was a bunch of other people they thought it was. And what's amazing about their video packages is once you find out who it is, you'll think to yourself, how did I not know that? Yet you'll never know. It's like a really great twist in a movie where you watch the movie and at the end you see the twist and you go, oh shit, I should have known, but I didn't know. They're so good at that, and I can't wait to see who the Grandmaster is. I don't know who the fuck he is, and I can't wait to see which faction he joins, or if he does, and who he's gonna face, and I don't know. It's exciting because who knows? It could be anybody. We'll see what happens. That's
the thing when a new wrestler comes to New Japan. You're just like, whose side is he on? Oh my god, is he going to be a Chaos Dude, LIJ, Bullet Club, Suzuki Gun? Where is he? What's he going to do? So, but after the intermission, which is maybe 10-15 minutes, it's not that long. We get straight back into the action, which is Ryusuke Taguchi, Satoshi Kojima, and Hiroshi Tenzan versus Bushi. I can't help it. That pronunciation of Bushi is just stuck in my head. We got Bushi, Sanada, and Evil, all from LIJ.
Well, and that is one thing. I will say, if there's anything I miss about not having the crowd there, it's the random, Sanada, Evil, just the random, Japanese fans are very quiet, and then all of a sudden they get so excited they just have to yell someone's name, and so they do it, and it's really funny. But yeah, LIJ is probably, I would say, the best at the multi-man tags. Of all the factions, they gel the best. So if you're gonna skip a one of these multi-man matches, which I didn't tell you to do, I'm saying don't do that. But if you're gonna skip one, don't fucking skip the one that's got Lij on it, because it's gonna be one of the best ones you see.
They also have the smallest faction in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's not that small. It's I think 6 members now. It used to be 5 for ages, but it's 6 members. It is the smallest group, but I think because it is the smallest group, they wrestle together a lot more than wrestlers from, say, Chaos Bull Club or Suzuki Gun. So I think that shows when you see their tag matches. They're a well-oiled machine. Like, there's a reason why Evil and Sonata have been tag champs in the past. Bushi has been a champion as well. Like, and apart from Sonata, right now every member of Lij has gold.
It's true. They're the 6-man tags, right? And
you know what's even worse?
What's that?
For Sonata, every member in Lij has gold, but 2 members of Lij have 2 golds.
That's true. Because, Tetsuya Naito, who is the leader of Lij, and he is the ungovernable one himself, he, is the double champion right now. At Wrestle Kingdom, they had a little itsy-bitsy mini tournament, which was just insane. Yep. If you want to get caught up on New Japan, just go watch Wrestle Kingdom. Just make sure you have 20 hours, because it is just fucking pure wrestling for like 20 hours. But he won the tournament, and so he won the IC title and the heavyweight championship, which both have a rich lineage. And if you go back and look at some of the people who've held those titles, you'll be very surprised at some of the names you see, and it's really interesting. On the other side of this, we got Kojima and Tenzan, Ten Cozy, if you will, and leader of Bread Club, Kojima, which we'll get into all that later. And then Taguchi, maybe one of the it's so hard to say this. I want to say this about everyone, but it's true about everyone half the time. Taguchi is one of the best wrestlers in New Japan, and he's one of the most versatile guys they have. And right now, he does kind of a comedy gimmick, and it is hilarious. But every year, around Super Juniors time, he seriouses up a little bit, and holy shit, we get to see a different side of him. He is awesome. Kojima and Tenzan are really old. It's fun to see him wrestle and everything. Poor Tenzan can barely walk. I don't know, man. I'm kind of, he's one of those guys where I'm just like, kind of seen him enough.
Though, Kojima, though, looks like he's got a couple years left in the tank. He looks like he's very excited. Taguchi, he is easy to dismiss as Mr. Butt Strike guy, because like he'll do ass attacks, like he'll run at you, turn, and hit you. It's a hip attack or something like that, they call it. But he hits you with his ass, and it's easy to kind of and then you hear his music, it's kind of fun too. So it's easy to dismiss him as just that comedy guy, but oh no, he can absolutely bring it when he wants to. So and he does, because he makes Bushi tap out.
Fucking hey, that was a really good transition. Good job. I love that. You're right. When Bushi taps out to him, and that moves us on. We have 2 more matches on this show. If we zip through these, we can start getting into these singles matches.
I'm very excited. All right, so we got the 5th match here. We got Togi Makabe. And we hear his usual music, not his international music. So we got Togi Makabe, Yuji Nagata, Kota Ibushi, and Hiroshi Tanahashi, the Ace, versus Menara Suzuki, Zack Sabre Jr., and Taichi. So it's pretty much Suzuki-gun versus Hiroshi Tanahashi's side. And Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi are the Golden Ace. They are the heavyweight tag team champions at the moment.
Jeez. It's a shame. That is kind of a downside of, there's a lot of downsides to the COVID thing and missing wrestling for this long. But I cannot wait to see them wrestle people, and if it's not GOD, I'll be okay with that. GOD is one of those teams that's not here at the moment. Tama Tonga and Tongaloa, and they're really good. However, when they're in the picture, they're like always in the title picture. So I'm really interested to see Koto Bushi and Tanahashi start to, I want to see them get in a feud with the LIJ guys. That's who I want to see them feud with. And then maybe, some other tag teams that show up, because they have a potential of being one of the coolest tag teams to watch ever. Really good stuff. Now, obviously, Minoru Suzuki, we're going to get into a little later. And Zack Sabre Jr., we haven't seen a singles match of his yet in the New Japan Cup, but he's one of your favorite guys, right?
Yes, he is. And for my movie YouTube reviews, I just go by LSJ. Well, it happens to be my name anyway, Luke Sims Jenkins. But he's one of my favorites because he's so unique. But it's easy to pigeonhole him. It's just like, oh, it's just a Zack Sabre match. But he can. I've seen him have fantastic matches with strikers. I've seen him have fantastic matches with like brawlers and high flyers. And you think, all right, he's a submission specialist. How's this going to gel with everyone? It works. He is like 6 foot forever. Tall, very skinny, and with very long legs and long arms. So he might not look like the strongest person in the ring, but he can use your momentum against you and just twist you up in so many different submission holds. I'm not even sure he uses one in particular as his finisher. I know he's used orienteering with Napalm Death before and all sorts of things, but for him, it's just about twisting you and putting you into a knot that you can't get out of. So, sometimes the other wrestler he will give up just by nodding his head because he cannot move his arms and legs because Zack Sabre Jr. has them all trapped. And it's incredible. And him working with Minoru Suzuki, they're just learning off each other, aren't they? That's just... Zack Sabre Jr. is fantastic. And I'm happily surprised he's here. I'm pretty sure he is the only non-Japanese wrestler here in New Japan in these times of COVID.
Yeah, I think you're right. All the gaijin besides him, and that's a term for, outsiders is what that means. And so, a lot of times they refer to the white wrestlers as gaijin. And so he's one of the only ones that's there for sure. And, it's a shame. And that's one point I wanted to make at some point. Might as well make it here. And that is that New Japan's roster is so fucking deep that they can have COVID and have 20 wrestlers that aren't even there and put on a 32-man tournament that's fucking amazing. So they're their roster is amazing.
Dude, that just makes me think about when right before AEW became a thing, of course they lost Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks. And I don't think New Japan missed a beat. And that's no offense to those guys. They're fantastic wrestlers and I really like them. And, they've gone off to do something different. But New Japan's roster and talent is so strong that they can take a couple of hits like that and just keep rolling. So we did have this match. Minoru Suzuki doesn't really give a shit about it because he spends the whole time beating up Yuji Nagata because that's their tournament match. So they just keep kicking the shit out of each other. And also ZSJ and Tai Chi are eyeing off Mr. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Koto Bushi because they're the tag champs. And ZSJ and Tai Chi will often tag team together in tag team matches. So there you go. They did the World Tag League last year. I think their name was the Dangerous Techers, or I don't know if that was their legit tag team name or just a fun one that I saw on Twitter. But then you've got Daoki, who was brought in, I think, because someone got injured or something like that. So they brought Daoki in last year to kind of pitch hit a bit. And poor guy, he always loses. And King Kong knee drop by Togi Makabe onto Doki. Minari doesn't care because he's not in the ring. He's too busy fighting with Yuji Nagata. And I think ZSJ and Taichi are too busy trying to beat up the heavyweight tag champs. So that leaves poor old Doki to fight Makabe. And, of course, Makabe just beats the shit out of him.
Well, what was the main event of the New Japan Pro Wrestling Together special?
All right, this is a really cool match, and you've got Sho and Yo. They're the Super Junior Tag Team Champions. They are Roppongi 3K. They're teaming up with Kazuchika Okada, and then on the other side you've got the three other members of LIJ. You've got Hiromu Takahashi, Takagi Two Belts, as I like to call Shingo Takagi, and of course, the other man with two belts, Tatsuya Naito. He's the fucking man. He's the champ. And I really like this because, I love me some Shingo and a Sho. So they've got a bit of a background story going on of Sho always getting a little bit closer and closer to beating Shingo, but then, pumping bomber, Last of the Dragon, it's over. And, so Shingo and Sho have this rivalry that's been building for a long time. So does Okada and Naito. They've got a very deep history as well. Yo and Hiromu, not so much. Yo, I think, is a little overlooked, probably because, no offense to him, Sho is a little bit more impressive and dynamic in the ring. Deadlift suplexes, all that kind of stuff. And look, you pull out deadlift suplex, any suplexes and like lariats and shit like that, I'm gonna love you. So Sho is a Super Junior powerhouse, and he can go toe to toe with a guy like Shingo, which is pretty cool. Not quite toe to toe because he can't beat Shingo yet, but maybe one day. And the thing is, Shingo's now moved up into the heavyweight wrestling, heavyweight division in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So Sho's in the junior division. But Shingo has the never open weight title, which means Sho can challenge for that. But it's not about that title at the moment. What we're doing is we're setting up, more tournament matches. And, hey, we've got to have the champ back on our first night back, don't we?
That's right. So we had Tetsuya Naito win this one, right? And I do have a little theory. He pinned Sho. But no, I have Yo, excuse me. I'm sorry, but I have a little theory about why Yo is overlooked. I think that when you look at him, you can't see him as a heavyweight at all. But when you look at Sho, you think, maybe in a couple years, you kind of think, he could be a heavyweight. And I think that's one of the reasons why Sho gets that kind of, everyone always says that he's kind of the next big thing, is because of that. That's just my opinion. Yeah, but
so Yo might be a career junior, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
But I also expect Sho to make a transition at some point. Before we move on, I want to point out that Naito pulls out this move I've never seen him do before. It looks like an inverted Destino. It looked kind of brutal and awesome. I don't know if there's a name for that move yet. I want to see it again. I don't know if it's going to be a finisher or maybe a transition to the finisher, which is the Destino. But I thought it looked pretty sick.
It's fantastic, and it's really cool for him to debut a new move. That's another thing that's a big deal. As we talk more and more about these matches, we'll tell you how they use moves to tell stories in, New Japan Pro Wrestling. Moves matter. When you're watching a big main event in New Japan and a guy hits a certain move, the crowd, ooh. And it's not because the move's impressive. I mean, it can be, but a lot of times it's because they know that move was actually the former champ's, and he learned it from that guy's mentor, which is actually his brother, or whatever. Yeah. I mean, there's always these big, crazy multi-layered stories that have to do with moves, if you want to see that, just watch any of the Kenny Omega Okada matches. That goes on constantly in those matches, and they kind of foreshadow stuff with moves too. Like, it's crazy. It's so good. And I've always said, I mean, if you boil pro wrestling down to its very essence, it is telling stories through physical motion. And so that's what they do. New Japan tells all their stories in the ring. you don't have to watch
No.
any of the extra stuff. You don't have to watch any of it. You don't have to follow anybody on Twitter except us, but
You don't.
you don't have to do any of that. No one's going to turn heel off camera at New Japan.
If you want more, there's the backstage segments, there's YouTube videos, there's of course following them on Twitter and stuff. And as to what you were saying about the history and things, like I remember Taka Michinoku giving Zack Sabre Jr. the Michinoku driver, so it's now called the Zack driver. And I remember him getting the Zack driver, and we didn't see that move for months. And then he hits it on Naito one night, pins him 1, 2, 3, and you're just like, holy shit! I remember this. Oh my god, that's a Zack driver. That's so cool.
They if you pay attention with New Japan, it pays off. They pay those things off, and that's the thing. Another thing, another rule with pro wrestling: if you set something up, you got to knock it down. And unfortunately, in American wrestling, especially, we see a lot of stuff dropped. A lot of stuff that we set up this big thing, and then nothing happens with it. There's no explanation. And as I mentioned earlier, New Japan's, they are transparent about things, so they're not gonna pretend like something's a certain way just to make you forget about something else, if that makes any sense. So, that was the Together special, and this, leads us to our first night of New Japan Cup matches. Luke, what is your history with the New Japan Cup? Like, how do you feel about it as a tournament, and what do you think that New Japan's trying to do with this thing?
Well, 32 men, all weight divisions. So usually this is a heavyweight tournament, but we didn't get the best of Super Juniors this year because of the whole COVID situation. So we've got 32 men, all divisions. Usually it's the heavyweight division, and it's an elimination tournament. I'm a little bit more partial to the round robin-y stuff, like the best of Super Juniors or the G1. But, oh man, that doesn't mean I don't love myself the New Japan Cup. This is, I think, my third New Japan Cup. Okada won one, and I think Zack Sabre Jr. won the previous one that I watched as well. So, really good stuff. It usually sets up a title match at the end of it, and oh man, I'm so excited. Look, and especially when Yota Tsuji, after beating Gabriel Kidd the previous night, he called out Togi Makabe, and you're just like, oh dude, and so that's our first tournament match. Young Lion, if it's a Young Lion involved in a match, usually it's in the first 1 or 2 matches. They're usually the curtain jerkers of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we've got Togi Makabe in a tournament match with Yota Tsuji, and it's about as hard hitting as you expect. And Yota Tsuji is showing a lot of promise, but one thing you'll find is, well, Makabe wins this match, but one thing you'll find about Young Lions in singles matches with established wrestlers is the match will just end with a seemingly normal move. So, German suplex, and Togi Makabe wins. And I think that makes sense. They're new upcoming wrestlers. It probably, and in storyline it makes sense, or kayfabe, I guess, because, they're so new and green that you don't need to beat them up and weaken them until you can hit the King Kong knee drop or whatever your finisher is at that time. So that always makes sense, but they always give you this little smidge of, oh my God, the Young Lion, he might win. But no, it's Togi Makabe. He wins the first tournament match of the New Japan Cup with a German suplex. And
well, your Young Lions are not in this tournament to win, and that's the thing. They're there to show us, the audience, that they have what it takes to win. That's what it is. It's not about winning. So a lot of times you'll see these Young Lions are all shitty and angry, and they'll attack a heavyweight before the bell or something like that. And after the match, they're like shaking hands, and the heavyweight's like, "Good job attacking me before the bell. That was really smart,"
Oh yeah, these guys are they're young, they're hungry, and New Japan emphasizes that if you turn your back on them, they'll mess you up. Because they're there They're there to win, even though they never do. And look, we've got our second match is one of the matches I was looking forward to the most on the first brackets of the New Japan Cup. We've got Toru Yano versus the Master Heater Jado.
So, everyone, if you follow me on Twitter, over the years, you know that, Yano is one of my favorite. He's probably my favorite comedy wrestler.
He's mine too. I think what sold me on him was Toru Yano versus Kenny Omega in the G1 a couple of years ago. Yep.
Well, they had a series of 3 matches, and we're not, we may recommend matches every episode at the end of the show. We're going to have matches, a recommended match of the week. But if you want to watch more than that, I highly recommend you watch the series of Yano and Kenny Omega. It is some of the most ridiculous shit you'll ever see in wrestling, and all of it makes perfect sense and is awesome. And that's the thing. Yano is he is like kind of the jokester thief kind of, like Loki. That's kind of what he's like. But at the same time,
he's a little. Just think, lie, cheat, and steal Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah. Yeah, but like times 10, because he starts matches off by trying to cheat. I mean, that's like he's immediately trying to cheat right away, and he's smiling the whole time. And his kind of gesture, his go-to gesture is the kind of, arms up, like, I don't know, like that look. That's kind of what he does. And so he'll cheat a bunch and then do that. It's fucking so funny. Now, Master Hito Jado, former tag team member, sometimes still tag team member of Gato. Those guys have been around forever. I just watched Halloween Havoc 1997, and Gato versus Jericho was on that show. I watched an ECW show from 2000, and Jado and Gato show up in there. So, those guys have been around forever, and Jado is kind of the manager of Bullet Club, sort of, right?
Yeah, he'll come out with Bullet Club members often. Wearing a bandana over his face, a hat. He's usually got a shirt on that says, "So what? I don't care." Because he doesn't. He will hit you with a kendo stick. He will cheat his ass off. So you've got Toru Yano and Jado, 2 guys who are definitely not going to play by the rules. And, of course, they don't. And on the website here, it says that Toru Yano wins with the schoolboy, but he never wins with a roll-up pin. I'm sorry, but his finisher is a low blow, because that's usually how he finishes every match. And I said I mentioned something like that to you on Twitter. We should have a name for that, and you called it the fair play, and I loved it. So if you ever hear me say Toru Yano hits the fair play, yeah, he just punched some guy in the nuts and. Gave him a good old schoolboy roll-up pin, 1, 2, 3, and
it's awesome.
That's what happens.
His Titantron like video when he comes out now, it's like an advertisement for his YouTube channel, because that's the other thing. He's constantly trying to pimp his stuff, like his T-shirt, his DVD, and it used to be that his Titantron or his video when he came out would just be him just hitting dudes in the balls and rolling them up.
Yeah, that's his video. Everyone's Titantron shows them doing. It doesn't matter what wrestling promotion it is. Everyone's Titantron video shows them kicking ass. Toru Yano's shows him punching people in the nuts, looking at the ref, going, with his hands up, and also pimping his DVD. Even though it's 2020, no one's buying DVDs, dude. No. So that's. And then, all right, so just to break up the tournament matches, we have a special tag team preview match. So we've got Yuya Uemura, the Young Lion, Yuji Nagata, Kota Ibushi, and Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Menara Suzuki, Zack Sabre Jr., and Taichi. Now, I think this is the match that's more the ZSJ Taichi teasing maybe a title shot against the Golden Ace team of Ibushi and Tanahashi. But then it was the previous night, so I think they're really kind of trying to tease that one. And I'm looking forward to it. I kind of want to see them fight Evil and Sonata, but I think most of LIJ's tied up with titles at the moment and busy elsewhere. So this is a fun tag match. I quite liked it, but of course, Uemura is not long for this world. If you're a young lion and Minoru Suzuki's in the ring, he is going to kick the shit out of you. But a couple things you got to note in this match that I think will be important. One of them is Hiroshi Tanahashi. They set up another injury angle with him.
I love this match.
Sometimes it's the arm, sometimes it's the knees, sometimes it's a combination of both. This time they're targeting the knees of Hiroshi Tanahashi.
It's a common storyline that we've seen with him quite a bit because he's so good at it, and I get it. He's the hero, but man, every fucking year.
I also want to point out that Suzuki Gun cheat to pin Yuya Uemura, who is a young lion. So that goes to show you what kind of guys Suzuki Gun are. They don't care if you're a young lion or a top talent star. They'll beat the shit out of you, and they'll cheat if necessary to pull out the win. So Suzuki hits the poor young lion Uemura with a gotcha-style pile driver.
It's a really good tag match, by the way. I highly recommend going back and checking that out. So, and we, of course, had a break in here where they went and cleaned all the stuff at some point. But we finish out with 2 singles matches for the tournament. What are these? What's this first one here?
All right. Now, I didn't know what to expect from this one. We've got Tomoaki Honma versus Hiromu Takahashi. Hiromu Takahashi is the Super Junior champion. Honma... All right, so I started in 2017. Honma was out injured, and when he's come back, I haven't seen always kind of why some of the older New Japan fans love Honma. I do know that he sounds like Japanese Tom Waits when he talks. His normal talking voice is death metal, by the way. It just is. It
sounds
awesome.
It sounds like his throat has razor blades in it, or like he's like chewing on nails when he talks.
But I think someone like you, who's been a fan of New Japan for longer than I have, would say that Honma was great, but he hasn't quite been 100% since coming back from his injury. It's obvious that he's a little more careful, and he had a broken neck, so I can totally understand that. But his opponent, Hiromu Takahashi, also suffered a broken neck, and he doesn't seem to have missed a stride. He hasn't missed anything. He was in full stride when he came back, and so it's people with past of having a broken freaking neck. The match, I didn't know what to expect because Honma usually holds back, and I thought this match was really, really good. What did you think?
Well, I love both these guys. I'm a big Honma guy, and one of the reasons I'm a big Honma guy is because, as I mentioned earlier, one of the first match I watched was Nakamura versus Ibushi, and then I just kind of randomly found another match, and it was Tomohiro Ishii versus Honma in Never Openweight Championship match, actually. And the Observer had given it 5 stars. So I was like, I'll check this out. And I was like, holy shit, I fucking love Honma. He's the best ever, and I've loved him ever since. His offense is based around headbutts. And, he has 3 basic moves. One is a Kokeshi headbutt where he just kind of goes stiff and falls over, right? And then he does that in various ways. Like he'll do it off the top rope to the floor, which he hasn't done that recently, but he used to do that pretty much in every match, and maybe he'd do it more than once. He'd like miss it once and then hit it once. And, one of the reasons I love him so much is because when he misses the Kokeshi, which he does more often than not, it is the most pain you've ever seen in a person's face. He it looks like he's crying at his family's funeral or something like that.
It's even worse now because like he's had that history of a broken neck. So
Right.
now when he misses that Kakeshi, not only is he weeping, I find myself also weeping, going, oh dude, come on, it's not too late. Switch up your moveset. Oh my god! But I do love seeing the Kakeshi. I have to admit, and it's a pretty decent match with some good back and forth. But the Super Junior champion does win with the time bomb, and you've got Hiromu making it into the next round.
We have to, in the future talk more about Hiromu Takahashi and how he is the most charismatic person in New Japan. It's hard to say, but he might be. Him and Naito might be the two most charismatic, where you see him and you just instantly love him. I mean, like, he doesn't have to do anything, and then he does all this weird shit, and you're like, I love him even more, and I don't even know why. He is such a bizarre and just awesome character, and he's bizarre in wholesome ways, but he's like a bad guy, and it's just one of the coolest things ever. So
I did like seeing Takahashi try to hit a Kakeshi himself, by the way.
He did. He did. Oh man, that was fantastic. Also, another thing about you mentioned that Hiromu Takahashi still has not slowed down, even though he broke his neck. And we don't mean he broke his neck a little. He broke his fucking neck and almost died in the ring. At this American show.
In a match against Dragon Lee, yeah.
That's right, yeah. And those guys are famous for having these crazy matches. But one of the things that he does is insane, is like half of his moveset involves bumping hard as fuck on the floor. And it reminds me of young Rey Mysterio and Psychosis and guys like that, where you go back and watch one of these WCW Cruiserweight matches from like 97, and dudes are just jumping off the top rope to the floor right and left and missing and bumping on their ass and bumping on their back. And that's kind of what he does. He is crazy, and I fucking love it. It's awesome.
I'll also say that even though they both had broken necks, and while Honma, you might get that impression that he's holding back a bit, and Hiromu isn't. And you got to remember, Hiromu's in his 20s, like young, invincible kind of guy.
Right.
And Tomoaki Honma, I'm not sure how old he is, Andrew, but I think he's in the wind down period of his career. He's in that transition of being, I guess, one of the old guys like Tenzin and Nagata.
Yeah, he is. And he and Makabe used to be kind of their own group called Great Bash Heel, right? And that's kind of dissolved now. You don't see that name up next to them anymore. And I think that they're kind of just floating around at this point. Maybe they'll join Chaos. That seems like what all the...
It feels like a lot of people have been folded into Chaos when everyone who was following Tanahashi moved with him when he joined forces with Kazuchika Okada. So now we've got the final match of night one. Oh man.
Happiness.
Be
That's
still
happiness.
my beating
in
heart.
love in your voice, yes.
We have got a man who I will call the tournament MVP. Doesn't matter what the tournament is, how many matches he has, how far he goes. He never fully wins these tournaments, but in my opinion, he is the tournament MVP. I love this man. I have a photo of myself with this guy. It is Tomohiro Ishii. I'm totally biased. He's one of, if not my favorite New Japan wrestler. He's definitely top 5. He is... Oh, look, I'm going to compare him right now, and you're going to think I'm crazy for a second. I'm going to compare him with Toru Yano. All right, so you watch a Toru Yano match, and it doesn't matter who he's wrestling, you can believe that Toru Yano will lose, or you can believe that Toru Yano will hit the fair play, 1, 2, 3, it's over, right? So Tomohiro Ishii is the tough version of that. He doesn't do comedy at all, but when you see an Ishii match, doesn't matter who he's wrestling, you can believe that he can win, And you can also believe that his opponent could win as well. So, maybe that's part of the reason why they sometimes tag together. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But that's a kind of weird comparison that popped up into my mind. So we've got Tomohiro Ishii versus Suzuki-gun's El Desperado. Ishii, of course, is in Chaos. And El Desperado is a junior. Ishii is a heavyweight. This match goes for 20 minutes, which tells you something. Ishii matches tend to go around that 20-minute mark. And usually in a tournament, you're waiting for that surprise, right? Because usually in the first rounds of tournaments, there's that match that you're like, oh, holy shit. When Switchblade beats Okada in the G1, and then he beats Tanahashi in the next match, and you're just like, well, that's his two toughest matches, and he just freaking beat both guys. You're like, whoa, holy shit. So there's always kind of a tournament surprise, and this is the first tournament night back in New Japan Pro Wrestling, so I was just waiting. I was just thinking, oh my God, could this be the match? Could this be the night El Desperado defeats Tomohiro Ishii? And for a good portion of that match, there was one part of this match, El Desperado has him in that kind of stretch muffler submission hold, and I said to my wife, I said to her, it's over. And it wasn't. And oh my God. See, Ishii matches will always make you believe it could go either way. And I think that's part of the reason why I love him and I love his matches so much.
Ishii's one of the most valuable wrestlers in the world. And the reason is kind of what you're saying. He can make any opponent look credible. And he is one of the most unselfish wrestlers that you'll see. Yep. He sells better than anyone I've ever seen. I'm not kidding. My favorite wrestler of all time is Daniel Bryan. And I compare Ishii to Daniel Bryan because they both do that same thing where they take any wrestler, doesn't matter who it is, and make them seem credible and make them seem like a monster. It's about putting your opponent over. It's about making them, a threat, because if you beat no one, then what does it matter, And Ishii is the living embodiment of that. And, if it's, one thing I always try to talk about when I'm explaining what I mean about Ishii is that he often gets in striking, exchanges with people. And there's a lot of this machismo thing that goes into, being a male professional wrestler in Japan. And we'll talk about that more as we get into our podcast, down the road. But, he is a big part of that. That's a big part of his wrestling is this, this grunting and, getting in the person's face and challenging them. And more often than not, he loses those strike exchanges. He instigates them so that he can lose them to make his opponent look better. And it's fucking awesome. And it doesn't mean anything about whether he's going to win or not. It's just a little transition thing that he does in his matches, in almost all of them. And it doesn't matter who his opponent is, he will sell for him. He's like fucking Ric Flair or something like that. But he's one of my favorite wrestlers ever. Desperado is a guy who was kind of on the come up. He was, maybe going to be in one of these positions to be a guy that could move up to heavyweight or something like that. But he had an orbital bone or broke his jaw or something like that.
Yeah, he had a death match.
Oh, really?
What broke his jaw in a death match. It wasn't in New Japan. I think it was just a side gig he did in Japan or something like that. I haven't seen the match, but yeah, apparently he broke his jaw and he was out for a good portion. I think it was of last year, maybe.
That's why I thought he was going to win this, because I thought, this was him rebuilding, starting to get back on track to where he was. But I think somebody else is taking that spot at this point. So, Ishii's got to move forward. And we'll talk about, before we wrap all this up, we're going to talk about what all these wins mean for the next round of the tournament.
Yep.
Because that's one of the cool things about this, is that we're seeing these matches develop and seeing the story that they're starting to tell. And, we get to see a little piece of the picture. And as this tournament expands fans, and as we get into it, we'll get to see more and more. But I thought that night one was spectacular. I thought it was a lot of fun, and man, my heart was so full of happiness and love for this thing called pro wrestling, and I was just so excited for New Japan to be back in a meaningful way.
Especially since, like, I'm very happy. My boy Ishii won. He hit the vertical drop brainbuster, which is his finisher to advance to round 2, and that was the end of night 1. I'd say my favorite 2 matches. They were all good, but I'd say Honma versus Hiromu was really solid. But match of the night was the main event for me, Tomohiro Ishii versus El Desperado. It is definitely worth looking at. I think it's pretty great stuff. If you haven't watched any of the New Japan Cup shows yet, and maybe a bit put off by Japanese commentary, I saw a tweet early this morning before we jumped on to do the podcast, and it said that Kevin Kelly's commentary for nights 1 and night 2 will be out today. I can never wait for the delayed English commentary because I need to see this live. I need to watch it now. But I can understand some people, being a little turned off by how foreign a lot of the language is. But as you've said a couple of times already, everything you need for any story in New Japan is told in the ring over the course of wrestling matches. So everyone who's a wrestling fan knows the language of wrestling, and I don't think it matters a damn what language commentary you're watching. Ishii versus El Desperado is a fucking good time. Let's go on to night 2, shall we?
That's right. This was on the 17th, which is this morning for me. So
yep. Last night for me, and it starts off, of course, it starts off with a Young Lion match. We've got Gabriel Kidd versus Taiji Ishimori. Young Lion matches tend to be shorter than, say, even in tournaments, than the general match. They're usually less than 10 minutes. Ishimori is so shredded. Like, did he spend the entire 110 days just doing nothing but fucking sit-ups? Wow. This guy is jacked. He's awesome. I love me some Taiji Ishimori, the Bone Soldier. But of course, he wins with submission. What I do like, speaking of your love of Daniel Bryan, he won with the yes lock, Mr. Ishimori. And the commentary, be it, I don't know if they do it in the Japanese, but in the English commentary, they will call it the yes lock in respect to the incredible Daniel Bryan. I'm not sure if Daniel Bryan has had a stint in New Japan. I'm pretty sure he hasn't, but he's a guy that would fit right in. I think it's a respect thing too. So they call it the yes lock, and Ishimori advances after hitting that on Gabriel Kidd. So not his usual finisher at all, and that's common for Young Lion matches. Doesn't take a finisher to beat him. It just takes, a normal move or a move that isn't your finisher to beat them.
Well, Gabriel Kidd kind of botched this finish too. So,
Yeah.
It's a shame, you don't see botches very often in New Japan. I mean, very rarely. And when you do, it's more that just kind of like, I hesitated a little bit. That's kind of the botch that you see every once in a while.
Sometimes it's a staged botch too. Like I noticed one between El Desperado and Ishimori. No, sorry, El Desperado and Ishii. And that's because they're tired, so they'll do these kind of like, it looks like they botched, but they kind of didn't. That was just all part of selling. But you got to think Gabriel Kidd's green. He's learning. He's only going to go up.
One of the best examples of that would be from Wrestle Kingdom last year between Naito and Jay White. That was one of my favorite matches at Wrestle Kingdom, and a lot of people were like, what the hell, it was all botchy. But that's because Naito's leg was like gone. It was like he didn't have a leg anymore. And so, no, he can't run up and down the ropes. That's the whole point. And so like unlike sometimes in American wrestling where a guy will be selling his leg the whole match and then forget all of a sudden that his leg's supposed to be hurt, these guys don't forget that shit. So, but yeah, it was kind of the idea was Ishimori was diving off of the top rope to do a Hurricane Rana on Gabriel Kidd, and Gabriel Kidd's supposed to catch him. It kind of missed him, which luckily Ishimori protected himself because that could have gone very wrong for him. But what I like about Ishimori is it's just like one of the craziest things. If he was in, I don't know, WWE or something like that, he would be the top junior. He'd be the top cruiserweight, just period. He would be the best guy there. But in New Japan, he's like the 5th best junior.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And that's not to shit on him at all, but he's so fast, so dynamic, and really crisp. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, there are 5 guys you can see as the Super Junior champion. There are about 10 guys you could easily see as heavyweight or intercontinental champion. There's a lot of people that are so believable in New Japan. So let's go, I guess, to our second tournament match of the night, which is Yuya Uemura versus Yoshinobu Kanemaru. And even though it's Kanemaru versus Young Lion, you think Kanemaru is going to play by the rules? No, he's in Suzuki-gun. He doesn't give a shit how he wins. Doesn't care if he beats him up or cheats or whatever. He just wants a win as soon as possible. That's the Suzuki-gun way. Torture your opponent and beat them. Doesn't matter how. And Kanemaru wins with a deep impact. Yeah.
His whole gimmick too is he has this whiskey, and it's called Satori whiskey or something. I think it's kind of like a Yano thing too, where maybe he has stake in that particular kind of whiskey, and so he gets to pimp it by spitting it in his opponent's face. Although I don't even think he had to do that to get the win here. I think he just hit the kid in the head with the bottle.
Yeah, I also don't think he can do it at the moment because of COVID. So they did tease it. He did have this bottle, which he did invariably use and then hit deep impact. But Kanemaru does like to take a swig and spit it into his opponent's faces. But I think we can expect a lot more of the bonk bonk on the head rather than spit in the face in the future. Yeah, probably because of COVID.
I didn't even think of that. But anyway, point is that either way, that's another thing. It worked within the story.
Yep.
So it doesn't fucking matter, Yeah. It's so great.
All right. So we got a tag match just to break things up a little bit, which are always fun. So we've got Sho and Yo, Roppongi 3K, Yoshihashi, and your favorite Hiroki Goto versus Bushi, Shingo Takagi, Takagi 2 belts, Sonata no belts, and Evil. So you got LIJ guys versus Chaos guys, which is always a good time. But I look at a match like this and I'm thinking, all right, it's either going to be Yo who gets pinned or Bushi.
Bushi gets pinned a lot, man.
Poor Bushi. I think he's fantastic. He's really good in the ring. I think he's got a good look, great moves. I think he's overshadowed, unfortunately for him, by every other member in LIJ. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean he's shit. He's really good. But the match ends in probably the worst way Andrew can imagine, which is Hiroki Goto hitting the GTR on Bushi.
Crappy one too. It looked all crappy. What happened? What happened, Goto? You did your own finishing move wrong.
Yep. I just want to mention there's a thing going with LIJ, which stems from the first night, where Naito was in the tag match with Hiromu and Shingo. Shingo wouldn't do the fist bump because he's in tournament mode. And, he's got to keep his game face on because if he wins this tournament, he's going to fight his leader. So there's that undercurrent going through the LIJ ranks at the moment. Yes, they are a well-oiled machine. Yes, they will work together. But if they have a chance to beat the shit out of the champion, they're going to take it. And I think I love that dynamic in LIJ.
Yeah, and like you said, basically they do they all raise their fist in the air. If you're familiar with the tranquilo pose, that's kind of where all this comes from. And so, yeah, it's interesting. They've told stories, many stories with that fist bump thing.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing, and I can't believe I didn't pay attention to that, because of course I should have, because I know in the past that fist bump means something. That's pretty great, man. Way to catch that, Luke. I like it.
No worries. And all right, so our next match features two men in their 50s, and usually when I say a match has two men in their 50s, like I can almost hear the groans of the people listening going, oh God, an old man match. This is going to be like 8 minutes of suck. It isn't. This is a 20-minute thrill ride between Yugi Nagato and Minoru Suzuki. Oh my God, both these guys beat the shit out of each other. I think Yugi Nagato's bleeding from the mouth. Both of them have just pink all over on one side for just where they continually slap and punch each other. There are points, when something's funny, and if someone repeats something and it's funny after the third time, then after the 10th time it's not funny, and then after the 20th time it's fucking funny again. Well, yes. With this match, you'll see where I'm going here. They'll slap each other, and I'm like, fuck, this is cool. They're getting into it. And then at some point, I'll see how red they are, and I'm like, oh, my God, stop slapping each other. Please stop it. And then I'll just keep doing it, and then I've come all the way back around again. I'm going, fuck, yeah, just fucking go for it, boys. Go for it. This match is fucking awesome.
It's, a good portion of this match is just literally them standing there punching each other. I mean, that is like a good portion of the match. But the way that they use rising and falling tension and stuff, and the history between these two, really makes it mean a lot. Yuji Nagata has won the New Japan Cup several times. And so, he has his eyes set on the prize, man. He wants to win this thing. And, these guys both are 52 years old. In fact, today, the day of the show, was Minoru Suzuki's 52nd birthday.
Yep.
So happy birthday to him. Somebody on commentary said he got his favorite thing for his birthday, violence. So, but these guys, one of the things that I loved about the story of this match is that Minoru Suzuki does do a few kicks. But a lot of his moves are upper body moves or power moves, one or the other. So Nagata is more of a kicky guy. And so he was like, you know what? I'm not going to do kicks. You want to punch me, I'll throw punches. And so for the first good chunk of this match, Yuji Nagata didn't bust out the kicks. And it wasn't until he busted out the kicks that he really started to take over a little bit. And I love that story of the match. And these guys this is a classic – they beat the fuck out of each other match. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. Like you said, Yuji is bleeding from the mouth. They both look all beat up, and I mean, it is just violence personified right here in front of us.
Towards the end of the match, they're stumbling around and oh man, I just want to say Suzuki's hits, just the fucking loud sound that they make. Far out, man. Just far out. Wow. Ouch. And then you see Yuji Nagata's, upper side, like he's from his fucking side of his face right down to his shoulder and chest is all pink and red from being slapped. Suzuki's in the same boat, but Nagata's, he's bleeding as well. So these guys go hard on each other.
And like you said, the noises. I'm a big fan of sound in pro wrestling. I think sound is so important. And, some of the best wrestlers are the guys that understand that and figure out how to make sounds. An easy example of that is like a weapon. A weapon in wrestling needs to make a sound. If it doesn't make a sound, it doesn't look like it hurts,
Yep.
And so One of the things that Suzuki, and I'm not trying to be, an old fuck that's, oh, I don't like what these damn kids are doing nowadays, but he's not going to slap his leg to make a sound. The sound comes from him striking you. And so that's the difference a lot of times between Western and Eastern pro wrestling, is that, these guys, it's a little more real, it's a little more shoot style than something you'd see in America where
moves
they
much
might
stiffer, yeah.
Yes. So, like you said, it's just turned up a notch. And, when Minoru Suzuki takes his calcified calf and does a PK on you while he's running at you, I mean, that is terrifying. And the other thing that he does that I think is terrifying is that he can move. He does this go behind sleeper hold thing, and it is terrifying. He sends a guy into the ropes. It looks like he's going to do a clothesline. Zip, he's right behind him, got him in the hold. And it's kind of like when you see Brock Lesnar just run, and you're like, holy shit, that guy can move. It's like that. You just see him make that quick move, and you're like, oh my God, that is so scary. And he laughed quite a bit in this match, didn't he, Luke?
Oh, he loved it. Minoru Suzuki loves two things. He loves beating people up, and he loves getting beat up. And eventually, that's what happens. Now, I said with El Desperado and Ishii that could have been a surprise result there with El Despi getting the win. But it didn't happen. The first night matches, they kind of go how I expected them to. Night 2, though, also went mostly how I expected, except for one match, and it was this one because backdrop 1, 2, 3, Yuji Nagato advances in the New Japan Cup, and in typical wrestling style, it's Minoru Suzuki's birthday, so of course he loses.
This match was fantastic.
Yeah.
When we get past this next one, we got to ask ourselves, I mean, what was the match of the week for us? It's going to be hard to beat this one, I'll tell you that much. But hashtag Gato's Revenge is next, right, Luke?
Yeah, Kazuchika Okada versus Gato. There's a huge bit of history here. Gato was always Okada's right-hand man until he betrayed him and joined forces with Switchblade Jay White, and then they joined the Bullet Club not long after. Now, there was a match, I can't remember when, between Okada and Gato last year.
Late 2019. It wasn't that long ago.
There you go. And that was pretty fun. I do think maybe that Nagata versus Suzuki should have been the main event in this instance. Usually they get the match order pretty correct. I felt, as much as I enjoyed Gato versus Okada this time around, I did think it was a little long at 15 minutes. It should not have taken Kazuchika Okada 15 minutes to beat Gato. It is fun. It's just a little long, in my opinion.
Well, I love this match. I really enjoyed their first one. I think, after that match, I was like, texted one of my buddies that watches it. I said, you got to watch Gato versus Okada 6 stars, because this is fucking hilarious. Gato showed up with his arm in a sling. He got hit by a car or beat up or something. He's like, I can't wrestle. And he's so bummed out. And he did the same thing. Now, one of the reasons that I love Gato is because he is a humongous fan of Memphis style wrestling. And I mean that goofy, hokey pokey style wrestling where the goofiest, silliest shit happens and it's the bad guy gets egg on his face. That's kind of his style that he likes to wrestle. Yeah. So this was in full force in this match. We had 8 different gimmicks. They had, he came out with his arm in a sling again, but he said he got hurt, but he still wants the match to go on. Well, he had some cold spray or something like that in there, and and so he had all kinds of things hidden on his person, and
it was up his shirt, and there's brass knuckles taped to his friggin' side, all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, look, there is fun to be had here, and I did enjoy this. I just felt like it maybe shouldn't have been the main event for Night 2 of the New Japan Cup. I know they probably put it there because it's Okada, and Okada's one of New Japan's top stars. But I would have given it to the old man this night because I do think that would have left us with a little bit more of a high. But as I said, it's a little long but fun. Gato gets his comeuppance, and Cobra Clutch, Okada chokes Gato out pretty much.
Yeah, it took him a while, but he got it. Mostly there was all kinds of outside interference too. I mean, this match was the definition of overbooked, which I think is a lot of fun. But it's different. It's a lot different than everything else that was on the card. Well, we saw a lot of good wrestling this week, but what was your favorite match of all the stuff that we just got to see over the past 3 days?
All right, so I know I called Ishii my tournament MVP. He usually is, and I think he probably will be again in this one as well as the tournament progresses, but I'm going to give it to Yugi Nagato versus Menara Suzuki for a few reasons. One, it's an impressive slugfest. We've got two people in their 50s who don't get gassed. They don't botch. Everything tells a story. It's brutal. It's wonderful. And the reason I give it the edge over the Ishii El Desperado match is because the ending was a complete surprise. I expected Menara Suzuki to come off with the win here because even though they're both the same age, Suzuki is still going strong and Nagata's in his kind of career wind down as one of the old guys of New Japan. So that surprise of the backdrop, 1, 2, 3, holy shit, Yuji Nagata's just beaten Minoru Suzuki. I thought it was fucking awesome. So for those reasons, yeah, that's my pick so far. That was my pick of the week. What about you?
Well, it's hard to pick against you because, as far as excitement level and enjoyment of watching the match, I'd have to agree with you. But I'm going to be different because I think we should be different. We shouldn't have the same opinions always. And, to be devil's advocate, I would say that Ishii versus Desperado is my winner of the week as far as the, best match. And that's just because, Ishii did what he does, is he brings an opponent to his level. Whether they're above him or they're below him, they end up on his level, which is elevation. And, to me, that's kind of the essence of pro wrestling. But man, I tell you what, so many great matches, and we are just dipping our toe into this thing. So there's all kinds of stuff coming up that's going to be incredible. I don't know about you, but I wrote down a few of these notable matchups that's coming up for some of our other New Japan Cup shows. Would you mind if we run down some of those?
Absolutely, let's do it. Round one matches?
Yes. So I have a couple things. So basically on the 22nd is our next New Japan Cup show. And we already know what the matches are going to be for all these shows. We know, and this one is going to be, this might be the best show of the entire tournament. Who knows? Because we got Tanahashi versus Taichi. We got Zack Sabre Jr. versus Ibushi, which will be fantastic. Yeah. Oh my god. And then Taguchi versus Sonata, which will be a sleeper. That'll be one that people will want to overlook, and then they'll see it and go, oh my god, both these guys are amazing. And I'm sure that show will be main evented by Sho versus Shingo. So that is a big deal. Who knows? That might be a title match. We're not sure. What is there one in particular that sticks out there for you?
Oh look, I love the Ace. I don't mind Taichi. My wife's favorite wrestler in the world is Koto Bushi. Of course, I love Zack Sabre Jr. We've spoken about Taguchi. Sonata, man, he should have some gold, I swear. But the one I'm looking forward to the most, I think I've mentioned it earlier, it's Takagi Two Belts versus Sho. I've seen it before, sure. I've seen a couple of these matchups before, but New Japan has this ability to give you matches you've seen before, but continuing a story that kind of feels real and organic, and I really like this. Will Sho finally beat Shingo Takagi story. I want to see them beat the crap out of each other. It's going to be hard hitting, suplexes galore, lariatos coming out of the wazoo. I'm really looking forward to that. I think Takagi will win it. I'm sorry, I'm going to be predictive here, but that's probably going to be the one I'm looking forward to the most, even though all the other matches I see as being a lot of fun as well. What about you?
I mean, this, like I said, this might be the best card on the whole tournament. We'll see. I mean, I just know I'm going to be glued to the television that day, and I'm going to be, jumping up and down and screaming in my living room probably. So I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. And one thing that's guaranteed, no matter who wins the Show versus Shingo match, the story of the tournament will move forward. The story of their personal feud will move forward, and the story of the Never Championship will also move forward. So the storytelling is out the wazoo, as you said it. Now on the 23rd, the next day, it's not quite as a magical a night on paper. However, you never know with this stuff. So we got Tenzan versus Yoshihashi. Yo versus Bushi. Now that'll be fun. That'll be really good. Kojima versus Evil. And Goto, my least favorite person, versus Yujiro Takahashi. So what do you think about that?
I know you're going for a super big upset, and you're hoping that both Tenzan and Takahashi come out with wins. I think Yoshihashi will make it to the third round. There you go. I've said it. That's as predictive as I'll get. But when it comes to the 23rd match, I'm looking forward to the most is Satoshi Kojima versus Evil. Two really big, imposing kind of guys, and I think they're gonna go off. I'm really looking forward to that one the most. What about yourself?
I think Yo versus Bushi. I think that's the one I'm going to like the most. But we'll see, Then the next day after that, then we get into some of these round 2 matches. Now, we talked about, all the winners and stuff from round 1 that we've already seen. So that means that on the 24th, that section of the bracket is going to be wrestling again. And we got Okada versus Yuji Nagata, which has never happened since he's been the Rainmaker, or maybe like one time. I don't think it's happened though. So that's a big deal in the history of New Japan, in the history of those wrestlers. You have Ishii versus Makabe, which I've seen that a million times. It's always awesome. It's gonna be similar to Nagata versus Minoru Suzuki, just two dudes beating the shit out of each other. Toru Yano versus Hiromu Takahashi.
I can't wait for that. I don't think they've wrestled each other except for maybe tags here and there. I don't think
it's awesome. And then we got Kanemaru versus Ishimori, two guys that like to cheat. So, I mean, a couple of those stick out there, but which one of those are you looking forward to the most?
It's got to be Toru Yano versus Hiromu Takahashi. I'm going to love Makabe versus Ishii. I'm probably going to love Nagata versus Okada as well. But I want to see Toru Yano versus Hiromu Takahashi. I think it's going to be super fun. I'm hoping that it goes the way I want it to. But, that's going to be a comedic match. Probably one of the shortest matches on the card, because Yano matches have a tendency to be less than 10 minutes long. That's because, doesn't matter when he pulls out the fair play, it's over.
It's not because he's like Goldberg and he can't go.
No, it's because he punched you in the nuts within 2 minutes and rolled you up.
Right.
And I want to see that. That chemistry. I want to see them have a go at each other, because I haven't seen them in a singles. I don't know if you have. I haven't. So that's going to be quite exciting for me. I think I've also seen Makabe versus Ishii. That's going to be great too. Yeah.
That's one of those ones. Those guys end up in the same block in the G1, and so you see them once a year usually, and they feuded over the Never belt, I think, as well. So, those guys are, that's going to be great. Again, another fantastic week of pro wrestling that we got to look forward to for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, Well, every time we have an episode, we're going to wrap this up with weekly match recommends. Maybe not weekly, just match recommends. What is your match recommend of the episode, Luke?
All right, so anyone wanting to do a bit of a deep dive, or like before I give you my pick, I'm just going to say anyone who wants to get into New Japan, follow them on YouTube. Every week they will put up a free match. I think the match I'm going to mention is a free match on there, which you can look up. Hopefully, if I mention it, even if it isn't, it's still worth looking up because it is my favorite New Japan Pro Wrestling match of all time. Yes, I'm starting my recommends with my favorite one, and it is the final of the 2019 Best of the Super Juniors. We've got Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi. It is amazing. These two, they high fly, they suplex, they punch. Like, it's just like everything. It's the kitchen sink. It's everything you want. You think I'm not going to tell you who wins. You can probably guess. But at the time, Shingo is, fuck it, I'll spoil it. Shingo's undefeated in the Best of Super Juniors and never been pinned in singles competition in New Japan. That's the story. Ospreay had a loss on his way to the Best of Super Juniors in the tournament. I can't remember who. It might have been ELP through cheating shenanigans, something like that. So that's the story. Can a guy who, like Will Ospreay, who has had a blemish or two in his tournament run, defeat the undefeatable Shingo Takagi? And to me, that is not only my pick this week, it's my all-time fave. So that was the first one that popped into my head. I've got a whole bunch of other ones ready to go for next time, so I won't just be cherry picking my top 5 or anything like that. But yeah, definitely check out Shingo Takagi, Will Ospreay, Best of Super Juniors Final 2019. What about yourself?
First of all, that is a fantastic match. Shingo, when he showed up in New Japan, the way that they booked him through that Super Juniors tournament and beyond a little bit has made him a threat and will make him a threat for his entire career in New Japan. It is just amazing how an undefeated streak can build a character if you don't just kill them, and man, it's just that kind of booking at perfection. So my recommendation would be the match that got me into New Japan. It's a great starting point for folks because at this point people are familiar with Shinsuke Nakamura from his time in WWE. That's been lackluster, but it is what it is. Kind of a lot of that. That's kind of what happens when you go there if you're a big star in Japan. But he faced Kota Ibushi for the IC title at Wrestle Kingdom 9. First of all, one of the greatest entrances in pro wrestling history by Shinsuke Nakamura, and you will hear his Japanese music, his Japanese intro music or theme, which I would argue is much better than his American one, which is also very, very good. So, it's one of the greatest entrances ever, and you immediately understand the character of Shinsuke Nakamura as soon as you see him. The same thing with Ibushi. They almost kill each other, and it is just one of the greatest strong style matches you'll ever see. It's a great place to start with New Japan Pro Wrestling, where you can watch that match and understand, okay, I don't get all this, but I get what this is about. And that's a good microcosm of what New Japan Pro Wrestling is about in general. And
on with Kota Ibushi, he has to be he has to have one of the most pretty boyish looks you've ever seen.
Sure.
And you can kind of go, oh yeah, he's the pretty faced good guy or whatever. He will fucking kill you. He is insane. He's brutal, and he is awesome. I've seen obviously more Ibushi matches than I have Nakamura and New Japan matches. That's mostly because I started in 2017. So I haven't seen this match, and you didn't spoil the winner. So I'm going to make it my mission to rectify that this week. And I'll let you know what I think of it next week if you like.
Do yourself a favor if you're going to watch that. There is English commentary. Do not watch it with the English commentary. It's Jim Ross and Matt
his
Stryker.
New Japan commentary is not good.
It's terrible. It's him there's this joke, he like talks about how he had breakfast with Nakamura and he's a Michael Jackson devotee. And it's like, nobody gives a fuck, JR. Shut up. Get out of my New Japan. So, that was the first time that they kind of dabbled in that kind of thing. And it was a little bit of a mess, but the wrestling's great. So watch it with the Japanese commentary and listen to that crowd. Listen to the difference between the American crowd and a Japanese crowd, and note that when they're quiet, that's good. Yeah, that's the thing. When they're quiet, that's very good. In American wrestling, when they're quiet, that's bad, right?
No, it's very bad. So before we kind of wrap things up, one thing I think we've not fully addressed is the fact that there was zero crowd. There's no crowd made of young lions or other wrestlers. There's zero crowd. There's no chairs around the ring at all. There's nothing like that. And so when you start watching these New Japan shows without the crowds, you're thinking, oh, shit, how is this going to translate? Is this going to work? Yes, because everything you need is in the ring. And the Japanese commentary, sure, I don't speak a lick of Japanese. I'm pretty sure you don't either, Andrew. So I just was so happy that it doesn't matter if you understand. They're so enthusiastic and the commentary is so loud and passionate and into it. The wrestlers have switched their style up just a tiny bit, because they don't play up to the crowd as much because there is no crowd. So it's a bit more of a getting on with it kind of vibe. I always miss the crowd. I miss it here too. But out of all the major promotions that have put on fanless shows, I feel New Japan feels the most normal, I guess, if for lack of a better term. It just felt like normal, good New Japan shows. It felt like coming home again, and they're going to gear up to having 1/3 capacity, hopefully in July, which I'll be interested to see how that goes, and I hope it does pan out and does happen. But the way they handled the no crowd situation, absolutely fantastic, because they focus on what they've always focused on in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that's the wrestling in the ring. So it didn't bother me. I got over it pretty much during the first match, which was just a couple of young lions, I guess. And then when the more established stars came out and did their thing, any fears I had about them not having fans in the audience quickly evaporated, and I had a fucking blast, dude. I hope you did too.
Of course, yeah. And just one more kind of thing to hammer your point home. Western wrestling, American style wrestling, requires a crowd. Japanese, New Japan style wrestling, the crowd is the salt and pepper. So it's like eating a fucking amazing burger that maybe could use a little salt and pepper, and that's it. You know what I mean? But that burger is still fucking great, Whereas in America, would be the other way around. It'd be you'd be eating a handful of salt and pepper, and you'd be like, "Where's my burger?" So it's a different thing altogether. And if you're missing that part of pro wrestling, if you're watching this American wrestling going, this isn't for me, I don't like it, and again, we're not here to shit on anything, but try New Japan. I think you'll be very surprised at how different it is in how they don't need a crowd and how they're handling all this in spectacular fashion as we move on in the New Japan Cup tournament.
Yep, best place to start with New Japan. Start at the start of a tournament, always the best place, because you're going to see a lot of wrestlers. You're going to get to know them, be it in preview matches or important tournament matches too. So that's always my recommend if you're wanting to maybe not watch a match or two, but just jump in whole hog. Start of a tournament is perfect. Now, as fun as the Together Project night was, it's not essential. I guess you could just watch the 2 New Japan Cup nights, but as Andrew and I have said a few times, if you don't watch those tag matches, you're going to miss out on some shit, some storyline beats. And I think they're also important because if you're returning to New Japan, the tag team preview matches will also remind you of feuds and things like that have been brewing and that come back to the surface. So, it's a great time to start. You can't go wrong. You've got everything that makes New Japan great. The crowds would be nice, but as you said, they're a bonus. Because I think with New Japan crowds, you're used to them being a bit quiet. And they'll get into it. Don't you worry. But they're quieter. So to not have them on a show, I guess you're kind of used to a little bit of a quieter crowd anyway.
It's true. You got real quiet when you said that.
Yes, I did.
Well, let's let folks know where they can interact with us. A big part of this show is we want to interact with folks. We want to, tweet with you during the shows. We want to do all that stuff. Luke, where can folks do all that?
Yeah, so at least one of, if not both of us, will be around at New Japan shows. Everyone listening can hate me because Japan's only, depending on the time of year, 1 hour or 2 hours behind Australia. So, all you people in America are getting up at ungodly hours to watch New Japan. It's about 7 or 8 p.m. for me, so I'm sorry about that. So I'm almost always up live tweeting about it. You can catch me at Grumpy2, the number 2 EB, or you can catch me at the our Twitter, isn't it? The NeverOpenPod, at NeverOpenPod. All one word, no underscores or any of that junk. And Andrew, where can we find you, mate?
Well, I'll be tweeting along with the at NeverOpenPod, of course. But if you want to hear my thoughts on other stuff or find out what else I'm doing, that'll be at Drucifer Tweets on Twitter. And we look forward to maybe talking to some folks. If you have questions for us, you can email us at NeverOpenPodcast or NeverOpenPod. Tell me, Luke. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
That's all right. I made this and I tested it yesterday, so it does work. We are at neveropenpod@gmail.com.
I should have known. So, email us there and we can, maybe we'll read your email, on the show, depending on how long we go on these shows. But yeah, I don't know if you want to wrap this up, Luke. This was a really fun first episode, and I can't wait to keep talking to you about all this stuff. It's going to be great.
Oh, dude, I'm pumped for more New Japan next week. We got 3 shows coming. Almost all tournament matches. There's definitely going to be at least one preview match in each one as well, just to break things up, because non-stop tournament matches can feel a bit relentless and grueling. So I do appreciate that. And oh man, and then I'm pumped to do episode 2. So yay, this is very exciting. And just lastly, in Gato we trust.
Yes, we do. That's it. Peace,
Yay.
King. All right.